Hi everyone, my name's Michael and welcome back to another episode of Amarok Weekenderlander, where it's not quite a daily, but it's definitely not an overlander. So before we get into today's video, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to everybody that supported this channel since I've restarted making videos. This channel has been a few different things in its time, but this is the one that I sort of seem most passionate about and enjoy the most, and hopefully you do too. Everybody who's ever bought anything from one of the links in my description in my previous videos, just a massive thank you to you. You cannot fathom the difference that makes, particularly when a video at the minute isn't actually monetized because my channel doesn't reach the criteria in which to do so. So anybody who has ever bought anything through one of my links, anybody who's ever considering buying anything from one of my links, just a massive thank you. It helps more than you ever realise, and it just makes me want to come out and keep making these videos. And that's why I've driven into sort of the middle of Northumberland today, about an hour away from my house, just to make this video to talk you through some of the top 10 different gadgets and sort of luxuries that we have in our kit that just makes that camping experience just that little bit more exciting and that little bit more luxury and premium. If you're one of these people that likes to do back to basics camping, unfortunately this video is not for you, but maybe stick around because there is something that might help, particularly one of the gadgets that I use in relation to keeping away mosquitoes and other flying things. These are all going to be sort of what I use in the UK. You might have different things that you use around your country, so please feel free to let me know in the comments if you think I'm missing anything that would go really well in the kit that I have. But I've got sort of 10 things that isn't going to be in any particular order, just things that I really like to use. So without further ado, let's get into it. So before I overheat and die, because it's unseasonably warm in Northumberland today, it's about 19 degrees, which I know is not a lot for some people, but it's quite a lot for us up here in the north. I'm going to do this one first, which is a microfiber towel poncho. Has a huge hood, which makes a big difference. We used to use these kind of chamois type microfibers, but this one, which is a little bit more towel-like, is just so much better. They just absorb water, but also they dry really quickly, so they are really quite big. I'm not a particularly tall guy, I'm like 5'7", maybe 5'8" on a good day, depending on what shoes I've got on, and they come well below my knees, which just means you can get changed pretty much anywhere. These would be perfect if you were into sort of kayaking or stand-up paddleboarding. You could get changed sort of quite discreetly anywhere. Great in campsites when maybe the showers aren't quite that big, and you know, trying to get change in a small area. By the time you've sort of moved around and stuff, this has dried you off. As you can see, mine is a very fetching grey colour. Other colours are available. It is incredibly cheap. Great camping accessory. Like I say, not only does it work, but it gets you dry really quickly. So that's number one. Like I say, not in any particular order, but I just thought I'd do this one first, is the microfiber towel poncho. Now I'm going to take this off before I get too hot, so apologise for the state that I am in the rest of this video. Now the next one I'm going to go for is this Hilker folding spade. It comes in a nice little sort of nylon carry pouch. It does have a belt loop, although I feel like it's probably a bit too heavy for something that you probably want to carry, but it is just a folding spade. So it comes out in sort of 3 parts, nice and small, and all you do is screw it in via that adjustment head. Let's go, we get there. And now you've got quite a sort of a robust spade. It does have an axe edge, saw edge, sorry, on it. You can use it for, you know, hiding your business, depending on where you are and if that's a sort of acceptable in your area. Just a nice small little tool, but you can also then unscrew it just that little bit further, and then maybe make it in a slightly more of like an entrenching tool as well, if you just want to dig into the ground that way. Just really handy to have, not from just a camping perspective of burying waste, sort of biodegradable waste. Please don't bury litter. Remember, we always want to leave a site better than we found it. But this, like I say, is either for burying waste, or I have actually used it a little bit to sort of level the truck out, if there is ground that's acceptable to do that on. Yeah, it's just a small little shovel, like I say, folds away to nothing. It's not that heavy, comfortable to use. You're not going to be wanting to dig a huge hole like fence posts in it or whatever, but for a small little gadget that's great to have, and particularly useful for sort of overlanding and weekender landing situations, would highly recommend getting yourself a folding spade. Now this next one was a recommendation from a colleague. I'm a teacher in the UK and I'm also a DV group leader, so that's the Duke of Edinburgh scheme, which helps get young people sort of out in the environment and sort of doing something good for the community whilst learning some key skills as well. And this is one that I seen on one of those trips, and it is this, believe it or not, this small bag in here is a fire pit. It's a collapsible fire pit. It takes everything you need to get sort of a fire basket off the ground. Obviously, please be very careful when sort of lighting fires in certain areas. You know, if there are fire bans, if you are in a forest and it's particularly dry, please check local codes and things for what you are and aren't allowed to do. That idea of leave no trace, so you don't want any scorching on the ground. Use one of these. So let me just quickly get it open and I'll talk you through it just that little bit more. So that's all it is, the bag, the basket and the legs itself. It's all pretty much self-contained. There is a top section for each of them. The legs are in 3 pieces, so let's get them all out. And then it just sort of folds around itself. This one's a bit dirty because it was wet when I put it away, so I had to give it a bit of a wash. But then all you need to do is make sure that all of the feet go on the same end. And then that now is sort of self-supporting. It's a little bit uneven here, but I am being lazy and doing it while sitting down. So then you have your leg system. It is a bit taller than this, don't worry. So then you use these little tags that go in the end of these. And then that's it. You light your fire on there. It is surprisingly strong. Like really surprisingly strong. We've had some quite hefty sort of logs on there and it just burns throughout the night. It does eat wood because obviously it's a very fine grade mesh and the oxygen can just pour through it. So be aware of that, you need plenty of wood. Also, one thing, this is the second one I've had because the first one I used one of those magic fire capsules, but the melting plastic actually wore holes in the mesh, which I didn't realise at the time, so obviously had to buy new mesh. These are really cheap, but also the good thing about them is you can buy replacement meshes, so you don't have to buy the whole new thing. So yeah, I really like this. I'll put some sort of pictures up of what it looks like, particularly with how small it goes as well. And I've used this maybe 7 or 8 times this year so far, and it's still holding up really well. So I'll get that packed up, but that's number 2, this portable fire pit or portable fire basket, just to keep your fire up off the ground and make sure that you leave no trace. So for number 3, not in any particular order, is actually some kind of food tip, and it's these, the Pancake Shaker. I might just be really new to this, but when I found these, completely changed my idea on what you can bring for a breakfast when you go camping. So the first time I decided that I wanted to bring pancakes, I was thinking like, do I pre-mix the batter at home, put it in a water bottle, then I've got to keep it in a fridge because it's got raw eggs in. This completely gets rid of all of that. I think these are £1 in a supermarket. There is a line that you fill them up to with cold water, you shake them, and then that is your pre-made pancake mix ready to go. You can get them with blueberries in, you can get them with chocolate chips in, and the date is actually really long on them. All we need is water, and we've got a 25 litre jug of water that we always take with us when we go camping, so we can always have something to eat. You know, it's not going to be a dire situation that we're going to be lost in the woods without food. Great, just as a thing to have in a camping box for a family, or some overlanding setup as well. So number 3, pre-made pancake shakers. Just add water, shake them up, then you can have your pancakes for breakfast. Next one might seem pretty obvious, but it's actually only a recent purchase for us. We were scratting around with torches on phones and stuff for a while until we just bought a lantern. So the lantern that we have is a proper camping lantern. It's LED. The only thing I would change about it is this one uses D-cell batteries. It's not rechargeable. I would like it to be rechargeable, but you could just buy rechargeable D-cell batteries. It's no real issue. This one in particular does different brightnesses, but also different colour temperatures. So it does cool white, so it's really bright, but then also does warm white, so that it's a little bit more chill, a bit more sort of ambient. You don't have to have the power of 1,000 suns blinding you in the middle of the night as you walk across a dark campsite. You know, we put this up on our air tent inside, either on a table, or you can hang it. There is a carabiner on the bottom, or you know, using this little grippy handle, we just pop the side out, clip it over, then clip it back in. It's a great little torch. You won't be able to see it because it's really light, but like I say, it sounds obvious that you should have a lantern, but we were just using torches, and now that we've got a lantern, it just makes it so much easier. It's 1,000 lumens, not that expensive off Amazon, just one of the first things that you find. Again, would highly recommend it. Actually, the weight of the batteries is quite nice when it's sat on a table. Just make sure that it's not top heavy. You could put something on top. That's number 4. camper lantern. Number 5 is pretty much the reason why I wanted to make the video in the first place, and it is this. The Thermacell Backpacker. Will potentially do a video all on its own about this, but it is one of the best things I have ever bought. So particularly in Northumberland and areas of Scotland, midges and mosquitoes are really a problem, and this seems to eradicate that. It was one of those that I never really realised that it works until somebody else said it. Again, we were out on a Duke of Edinburgh camp, just sitting around the campsite that we use quite often. Does have a bit of a midgie problem because it's near a body of water, and I just got this out, and then it wasn't until one of my colleagues went, seems like all the midges have gone, and they didn't realise that I'd had this on. So what this is it's one of those repellent pad burners, basically is what it is, but it's meant to use outdoors. I was really sceptical when I first seen this. I was like, it claims to create a 15-foot sphere of repellent, basically. So what it does is it screws on top of a normal camping gas cylinder. You ignite it, and it's just a very small burner. It claims that one of these size canisters, which is a 230 gram, I think is 90 hours burn time, whereas the pads themselves expire every 6 to 9 hours, basically until they go white. The one thing I would recommend though is you do not need to replace the pads with the Thermacell ones. The Thermacell ones are really expensive. They are just a little bit bigger, but you can go on Amazon or eBay and buy them in like packs of 200 for an absolute fraction of the price, and just put 2 in to cover that sort of hot plate. But this really seems to be a game changer, given that you're probably going to already be carrying that to cook on if you're a backpacker. To carry that is next to nothing extra. And it could just make your camping experience that little bit better. It is not meant for use within tents, but we have used it inside of our air tent, but with the big door open, and you could literally see the flying insects vacating the tent. Really recommend this. If nothing else in this video, I would highly recommend everybody gets one of these. There will definitely be a link in the description, not only to this but to the replacement pads that aren't the Thermacell ones, so they're not really expensive. If I was going to put them in an order, this would definitely be number 1. And for number 6, I'm going to kind of recommend 2 products in one. The first one is a tarp of any kind of description, especially if you couple them with these, which are suction anchors. I've used these before. I covered it in my top 10 iCamper and rooftop tent mods and hacks video, so if you haven't seen that, there'll be a link somewhere. But the way that these work is they are just a suction cup with a carabiner on the end. I use these in conjunction with this to make a makeshift awning off the side of the truck. But this one itself is 2.1 meters by 1.4 meters. That's just so that it works with my cab. You could use a bigger top if you want to, a 3x3 or a 4x4 meter. But until we had the air tent, this is what we used to use. I would still use it if it was just a little boondoggle situation that I'm in now, and it just means that I don't have to worry about the air tent, but I can have some shade, or in England more likely to have some rain cover, because we need it. It's not perfect, it's not huge, but it's enough that it makes a difference, and that's the key thing. Obviously you will need some kind of telescopic pole with it. I use the one from Stitches and Steel. They are brilliant, but we'll also link some alternative Amazon ones if you're not available to get Stitches and Steel from where you are. Yeah, but any kind of tarp in any size which is appropriate for your situation. I'm probably now going to use this more off the back of the truck to protect the cooking area whilst we're stood. So yeah, I got a grey tarp because it matches the truck, but you can get green or brown or whatever you want to use. But particularly with these suction anchors, they are so useful. You can use them as a washing line. It's just something that attaches to the window or the paintwork of your car. You will need to add some guy lines to this. I went for the luminous yellow ones so that you can see them, just so that you've got something to tie the poles out with to keep them rigid. But number 6, a tarp and some suction cups sort of together, but either or on their own both come in really useful, so I would highly recommend both. And the last of the small ones for number 7 is these little booties from Motane. They're essentially like a camp slipper is the best way to describe them. They're called the Prism booties. I'm not going to get them both out because obviously they're identical, they're shoes. But they have this sort of hard rubberized sole but a semi-insulated upper. We use them in our air tent because we don't have any kind of floor other than a thin ground sheet that's waterproof, and these just keep the chill off something brilliant. Even without socks on, These will keep your feet warm. I would recommend you size up a little bit because these are a size small, and I'm an English shoe size 7 or 8 depending on the brand, and these don't really fit easily. I can get them on, and once they're on they're fine, but they're just, God, they're tight around here. So just do try them on first, but as a sort of a camping shoe or slipper, would be great if you maybe have a van or something like an Alpicool canopy camper that you can wear a shoe inside, but it's more of a slipper than a shoe. But they would be great around the house, but I don't really wear slippers in the house, so I just leave them in the back of my truck in the camping setup. So that is our Motane Prism Booties for, I think it's number 7, not sure of the numbers, I'll correct myself on screen. It wasn't 7, it was 8. The towel poncho that isn't in the pile down in front of the car is the one I'm forgetting, so this next one's going to be 9 and 10. Right, so this one is going to be very specific to overland vehicles and sort of van lifers. It is these ramps, I think Fiamma, don't know how you pronounce it, but it's that brand. These are a set of leveling ramps. You can get different sizes depending on your vehicle weight, but they are a stepped ramp. I think these ones are meant for caravans. This is a level up set. You can get chocks that go in, and it's just so that you can balance the vehicle flat. I have had one night where the vehicle wasn't flat, and it was one of the worst night's sleep I've ever had whilst being away. Went out and bought these straight away as a result. They are quite heavy. Some people use like Max Trax traction boards instead, but they're really expensive, and also don't have this step pattern that these ones have, and that step pattern just means you don't have to balance on rocks and whatever. Ideally for my Amarok tyres I would like them a little bit wider. I think you can get wider ones. These ones are rated to 2.5 tonne per ramp, and given that the truck itself is only about 2.5 tonnes all in, you're never going to have the full weight of the truck on one of these, because I've got 2. I don't need 4. You can always pretty much level it front to back, side to side. And the main way I do that is I've now got an Autool X95 on the dashboard, which is invaluable. You know, I have got spirit levels on the back, again covered in the top 10 rooftop tent and iCamper mods video. There are spirit levels on the back, but that requires a second person, otherwise you're in and out the car, in and out the car. The Autool digital slope meter works really well in comparison, in conjunction with these. So I can now level the truck on my own within minutes of arriving at site. Then all you've got to do when you drive away is take this with you. I know that's not the cool Instagram sort of overlandy way you park on a boulder or whatever, but I'd rather just be flat than mess around finding a ramp or whatever. So they've just got this bag that they live in, which I leave in the footwell of the truck. So again, specific to my application, not so much any other normal camping. So yes, definitely the Fiamma, however you pronounce it, level up ramps, but then also add in the Autool X95 digital slope meter or inclinometer, whichever one you want to call it. Those two in conjunction with each other make this my sort of number 9 as a camping gadget or luxury to have. So I've saved the biggest and most expensive and the most luxury item until last of this top 10 luxury gadgets and things to have, but it is a camping fridge. This has completely changed how we camp. We can stay out longer. Obviously we run it off the car's ignition source when we're driving. We will have to be reliant on an electric hookup when we get to a site until we get a leisure battery or second battery installed, or a dual battery system, whatever you know it as. That is coming for my vehicle, I just don't have it yet. But this has just changed how we can camp and how long we can camp for. This specific one is a Vevor 35 litre. It's the equivalent of an Alpicool CF35. Obviously a bit of a sort of a Dometic ARB rip-off, but it's the sort of the cheap one from Amazon. Is brilliant. Not sure if it's the most efficient in the world because I've never had to run it off purely battery yet, but it does a damn good job of keeping things cold when you've got power to it. I would always recommend pre-chilling it just to make sure that your items are cold that go in, but and also the fridge itself is cold. Gets down to temperature very, very quickly. In conjunction to the fridge, I have also added this insulated jacket. This one's from Polar Box. It's their 32 model, so it's for their slightly smaller fridge, but fits this one perfectly, and thanks, because there is no one listed for Vevor fridges, and the Alpicool one is prohibitively expensive, and there are no UK distributors for it. These are all essentially the same fridge with a different brand on, so just find one that fits your dimensions and check it. I've added the jacket for a bit of protection and hopefully a bit more sort of thermal properties. You know, it's a foil lined thing with a little bit of thermal, but obviously being black in the sun absorbs the heat. And there is a video out online contesting the effectiveness of these jackets, but if nothing else, it protects it a bit more. I'm sure this was around £200 when I bought it. The jacket was about 35, and it's a huge fridge. We had a week's worth of food in there when we went around the Lake District in Easter and didn't need any more space. In fact, we had more space, so we just put more and more drinks in there. So yes, it's really expensive in comparison to everything else. Yes, it is very much a luxury. But if you're sort of seriously getting into your camping or your overlanding or weekender landing, getting a fridge will change everything. I would love a Dometic, but I could have 3 of these in the time I could have 1 Dometic. So if this isn't that reliable, I still can buy 2 more before a Dometic or an ARB. Last one, number 10, most expensive, but our Vevor 35 litre fridge. Right, so that is my top 10 overlanding / camping gadgets and luxuries that I would recommend that you buy based on my experience over the last 12 months of really sort of getting into this whole overlanding, weekender landing thing. Like I say, none of them are essential. They're all just aimed at making that experience that little bit more homely and comfortable so that you can really enjoy your time out on the road and in the wilderness and on your adventures. All of these things will be linked in the description below if applicable, and any sort of affiliate links will be marked as such. You will not experience any extra price as a result of them being affiliates. It just means that I get a little bit of a kickback as a result of that, and it really does help going a long way. And like I say, a massive thank you to anybody who's ever bought anything through one of my affiliate links before. And other than that, a massive thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing, share this video around, comment underneath if there's anything that you would like to sort of add, or if you've got any recommendations that I could make in a bit of a follow-up video. Other than that, have a great time. I'm going to take this towel off before I die of heat stroke, and I will see you out on your adventures. Thanks, bye bye.